The sky burned red above the ruins of Vraxos 9. Towers that had once reached the clouds now lay broken, their metal bones glowing orange from the fires that never went out. Smoke drifted across the shattered city, and every few minutes the air would tremble with the scream of starfighters clashing somewhere above. It was the kind of sound that made even the strongest hearts tighten. Beneath those dying clouds, a man in cracked armor crawled across the rubble, his rifle pressed to his chest, the visor of his helmet flickering with static. His name was Eli Thorne, a former soldier from Earth who had not slept properly in weeks. He was not here to fight anymore. He was here to find his daughter. Earth was gone, destroyed by a massive solar flare that had wiped out most of the planet's life and driven the survivors into the cold. The human fleets had scattered among the stars, begging for a place to settle. But the galaxy did not welcome them. To most alien races, humans were seen as violent, unpredictable, and cursed with endless hunger for war. They were wanderers from a ruined world, unwanted guests wherever they landed. When Eli's evacuation vessel was hit by debris during the Exodus, it had crashed on Vraxos 9, a world already tearing itself apart in another war. His daughter, Mira, had been in a smaller escape pod that drifted away before impact. He had seen it fall somewhere near the southern ruins, and since that day, he had been fighting his way through the chaos to reach her. Vraxos 9 belonged to the Gorath Empire, a proud species of reptilian giants known for their strength and brutal honor. But they were losing their planet to a nightmare called the Veil Swarm, self-replicating machines that consumed everything living and non-living alike. The swarm devoured whole cities and turned their metal into more of themselves. Their skies shimmered silver with endless drones, and their ground crawled with mechanical serpents that drank the life from the soil. The Gorath had tried to fight them with brute force, but the machines never tired, never feared, and never stopped. Eli crouched behind a wall of broken stone as a new wave of Veil drones swept past, their wings slicing the air with a high electronic shriek. His rifle hummed faintly, its energy cell nearly dead. The AI in his helmet whispered, "Energy levels critical, Commander. Evacuation impossible." He ignored it. He was used to impossible. He just needed to survive long enough to reach Mira. He took a deep breath, feeling the dry air scrape his lungs, and looked at the small hologram strapped to his wrist. A flickering image of a smiling girl with dark hair and curious eyes. That little face was all that kept him moving. A sudden noise broke the silence. Not the cold hiss of a machine, but a wet, shaky voice echoing from somewhere behind him. It was a sound filled with fear, heavy breathing, and pain. Please, don't hurt me. I can't walk." Eli turned, raising his weapon, his instincts sharp. The voice came from behind a broken pillar where a huge shadow shifted in the dust. He stepped closer, boots crunching glass and ash, and saw what was hiding there. A Gorath, one of the alien warriors, but not like the ones he had seen in combat. This one was massive and bloated, his armor cracked and blackened, his thick limbs trapped under a pile of fallen stone. Blue blood seeped down his side in slow, heavy drops. His 6 eyes flickered with panic as he stared at the human soldier. The alien lifted a trembling claw. You are human, yes? You came to steal our planet?" His voice was deep but weak, each word trembling between suspicion and despair. Eli aimed his rifle but didn't fire. "No," he said quietly. "I came to find my kid." The Gorath blinked, confusion crossing his wounded face. He let out a dry, broken laugh that turned into a cough. "Then you are a fool, human. Leave me, I am finished. The Veil will consume us all soon." "You cannot fight them." Eli looked at the rubble trapping the alien's legs, then at the ruined skyline beyond. The machines would be back any second, but he couldn't walk away. He sighed and slung his rifle onto his back. "Not today," he said. He pushed against the debris, muscles straining as metal and stone scraped against his armor. The Gorath stared in disbelief. Humans were small compared to his kind, but this one was lifting slabs of wreckage as if the world itself depended on it. "You are mad," the alien whispered. "Maybe," Eli grunted, shoving one last piece aside, "but I'm all you've got." With a final heave, the rubble fell away, revealing a faint glow beneath the alien's crushed armor. A device humming weakly, its light pulsing blue. Eli pointed to it. "What's that?" he asked. The Gorath looked down, his breathing heavy. "Our command beacon," he said. "It can call the last fleet from orbit. But I cannot reach it." Eli nodded slowly. "Then I'll get you there." The alien's eyes widened. "Why? What do you owe us?" "Nothing," Eli said. "But if that thing brings help, it might save my daughter, too." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the alien gave a low, rumbling sigh that might have been respect. "My name is Rogath, last of the Gorath war priests," he said. "If we live through this, human, I will remember your name." Eli gave a tired half-smile. "Eli Thorn, don't bother remembering unless we actually make it." Together they began to move through the ruins. Eli fashioned a makeshift sled from scraps of armor plating and dragged the heavy alien across the scorched streets. Above them, the sky flashed with more explosions as the Veil fought what was left of the Gorath defense ships. Every few minutes the ground shook from distant impacts, and columns of light rose into the clouds, where whole districts were being wiped clean. They passed shattered temples, broken statues, and burning hives of twisted metal where the swarm had nested. Through it all, Rogath muttered prayers to gods Eli had never heard of, while Eli focused on keeping his motion sensor quiet and his weapon ready. Once, they had to hide as a squad of Veil drones glided by, searching with red scanning beams that swept over the street like lightning. Eli pressed his back against the wall, covering the alien's huge form with pieces of rubble to mask the heat signature. Rogath whispered, "If they find us, leave me." Eli shook his head. "You talk too much for someone who's dying," he said, and the alien gave a weak laugh. It was strange, a human and a giant alien crawling through hell together. But in that moment, neither cared about what species the other was. Both were just trying to survive. After hours of crawling and fighting through tunnels filled with smoke, they finally reached a canyon where the old Gorath command bunker still stood. The walls of the fortress were scorched, its defense turrets silent, but the beacon tower still pulsed faintly with light. "There it is," Rogath breathed. "Our last hope." Eli looked at the slope ahead. Dozens of Veil constructs crawled over the bunker like ants, their metallic bodies clicking as they repaired and replicated. He took a deep breath and checked his weapon. "Guess we fight our way in," he said. Rogath looked at him astonished. "You would fight for a people who call you savage?" Eli shrugged. "I'm not fighting for them. I'm fighting because if we lose, everyone dies, including my kid." He started forward, rifle humming, every step measured. The alien watched in silence as the lone human charged into a battlefield that had already claimed thousands. For the first time, Rogath understood why the galaxy feared humans. They were not strong because of their bodies or their weapons. They were strong because they refused to quit, even when logic said there was no hope. Eli moved like a storm, blasting drones apart, dodging beams, diving into cover, dragging the alien forward inch by inch. Every burst of fire lit up the darkness, and every movement echoed with the sound of stubborn defiance. When they finally reached the broken doorway of the bunker, Eli turned back toward Rogath and said, "Once we're inside, you'll have to guide me. I don't know your systems." The alien nodded, grimacing in pain. "You will not regret this, human." Eli gave a small smile. "Let's hope we live long enough to find out." As the metal doors closed behind them and the sounds of battle echoed outside, the world of Raxos 9 continued to burn. But for the first time in a long time, a spark of something new flickered in the ashes. Not just survival, but trust. It began with a human father who refused to leave a dying alien behind, and a crippled warrior who finally saw humanity, not as invaders, but as something far more dangerous, something that fought for love, even at the edge of extinction. The tunnels beneath Raxos 9 were dark and endless, lit only by the flicker of broken power lines and the dim blue glow of alien technology half buried in dust. Eli Thorn dragged the wounded Gorath, Rogath, through the twisting corridors, his armor sparking from battle damage and his breath coming in heavy bursts. Every step sent pain shooting through his body, but he pushed on, pulling the massive alien on a sled he had built from scraps of metal. Above them the war raged. Explosions shook the ceiling, sending dust down like gray snow. Somewhere far away, the Veil swarm was moving closer, their cold mechanical hum spreading through every street, every ruin, every crack in the ground. "Why are you helping me, human?" Rogath asked weakly, his deep voice echoing off the tunnel walls. "You gain nothing. You should have left me to die." Eli didn't look back. "Because someone has to do the right thing," he said simply. "And because my daughter's still out there. If there's a chance this beacon of yours can call help, I'm not wasting it." The alien was silent for a long time after that, and only the dragging sound of metal and the faint hum of the machines filled the dark. The deeper they went, the hotter it became, and Eli could smell burning oil and scorched stone. They were heading straight into the heart of the battlefield. When they finally reached the command bunker, the sight before them froze both in place. The fortress had once been a masterpiece of Gorath engineering, carved from black steel and powered by living energy crystals. Now it was a tomb. The main gates were shattered, the walls scorched with plasma burns, and Veil constructs crawled over the remains like silver spiders rebuilding a web. Dozens of the machines worked in silence, their bodies sleek and shining, their eyes glowing red in the dark. They were reshaping the bunker into one of their hives. Rogath's voice was barely a whisper. "They are consuming the command center. Once it is gone, there will be no signal, no fleet, no hope." Eli checked his rifle. The energy meter blinked weakly. One last charge. His grenades were gone. His armor's power cells were near empty. But there was still fire in his eyes. "We're not dead yet," he said, and moved forward. Rogath tried to stop him, but the human didn't wait. He dashed from cover to cover, rolling behind fallen beams and broken consoles, firing short, precise bursts that hit the Veil drones in their glowing cores. Each hit sent a burst of blue light through the shadows. The machines turned at once, screeching in static, their bodies twisting into attack forms. The room erupted in chaos. Eli fought like a man possessed, ducking behind wreckage, using the shadows, setting traps with pieces of overheated power cells. Every move was desperate, but he never stopped. The Gorath watched in stunned silence from behind a pillar, his eyes wide. He had fought beside thousands of his own kind, but he had never seen anything fight like this small, battered human. When Eli's rifle finally clicked empty, he threw it aside and picked up a fallen Veil shard, driving it into another drone's chest. The explosion sent him crashing into the wall. His armor split open at the shoulder, blood spilling down his arm, but he forced himself up. "Move, Rogath!" he shouted. The alien roared, summoning strength he didn't know he still had, and crawled toward the beacon pedestal at the center of the room. A massive Veil guardian descended from the ceiling, a machine twice the size of a tank, its body made of swirling metal tendrils and red light. It swung a blade arm down toward Rogath, but Eli intercepted it, firing his sidearm until the barrel melted. The blade tore into his armor, sending him sprawling. Yet even as pain ripped through him, Eli laughed through gritted teeth. "You're gonna have to do better than that," he growled. He pulled a plasma grenade from his belt, his last one, and slammed it into the Guardian's chest. The explosion turned the whole chamber into fire. When the smoke cleared, the walls were cracked, the air thick with sparks and dust. Eli stumbled forward, dragging his wounded body toward Rogath, who was lying by the beacon, his breathing shallow. "Now!" Eli rasped. "Activate it!" Rogath's trembling claw reached for the panel and pressed it. The device pulsed once, then again, and a wave of blue light burst outward, spreading through the ground like lightning veins. The sound was deep and powerful, echoing far into the distance. "It is done," Rogath whispered. "The fleet will come. They will hear us." Eli dropped to his knees, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "Good," he muttered. "Now we just have to survive until then." But as he looked up through the shattered ceiling, his face fell. The clouds above were parting, and through the gap, he could see a dark shape descending from orbit. The Veil mothership. It was enormous, larger than a moon, surrounded by swarms of drones. Beams of red energy lanced down toward the planet, turning whole regions into molten rivers. "They're going to wipe the surface," Eli said, his voice heavy. "They're not even fighting anymore. They're just cleaning up." Rogath's eyes flickered weakly. "Then we must destroy their core. Beneath this city lies the reactor. It powers everything, even their link to the swarm." He coughed, blue blood staining his teeth. "If the core explodes, it will burn them from the inside out." Eli looked at him. "And what happens to us?" The alien gave a sad smile. "We burn too." For a moment the only sound was the crackle of fires and the faint hum of the dying beacon. Then Eli looked up again, his face calm, almost peaceful. "Then we do it," he said. "If that's what it takes." Rogath stared at him in disbelief. "You would die for a world that hunted your kind?" Eli met his gaze. "I'd die for my daughter. I'd die so she can have a place to live when this is over." He looked around at the ruined bunker. "Maybe that's what your people forgot. What it means to fight for something more than yourself." The alien lowered his head. "You are not like the stories told about humans," he said quietly. "They said you were monsters. But maybe we were wrong." Eli smirked faintly. "Monsters don't do rescue missions." Outside, the ground began to quake as more Veil ships descended, firing red plasma into the surface. The city was collapsing. The air was filled with smoke, dust, and the smell of burning metal. Eli helped Rogath onto his sled again and began pulling him toward the lower tunnels that led to the reactor core. Every hallway they passed was filled with debris and dead machines. They had to fight off smaller drones that scuttled after them, tearing into the walls like silver rats. Eli shot until his sidearm overheated, then used broken pipes and stones to crush the machines. He was exhausted, bleeding, his vision blurring, but he refused to stop. Rogath tried to speak, but Eli cut him off. "Save your strength. You're going to help me blow up a goddamn planet." The alien let out a weak laugh that turned into a cough. "Humans," he muttered. "You really are insane." They reached a maintenance shaft leading down to the core chamber. The heat was unbearable, glowing through the metal floor like the inside of a furnace. The deeper they went, the more the world seemed to shake, as if the planet itself was groaning in pain. Above them, the sky turned white from the Veil bombardment. Eli could hear Mira's voice in his head, her laugh, her words when they left Earth. The promise he made that he would always find her, no matter where she was. That thought gave him strength. He gritted his teeth and pulled the alien through the last gate. "Almost there," he said, his voice shaking. "We end this now." Rogath looked at him, his eyes shining through the dust. "Human," he said, "if we die, I will die proud. Because for the first time, I fight beside someone who understands what honor means." Eli looked at him and nodded once. "Then let's make it count." Behind them, the Veil drones were coming again, the metallic swarm filling the tunnels like a living storm. Ahead, deep in the earth, the reactor pulsed with fiery light, waiting for them to reach it. The war was far from over, but in that moment, under the burning world of Vraxos 9, a human father and a dying alien warrior dragged themselves toward the heart of destruction, ready to face the impossible together. The descent into the planet's core was like falling into the heart of a dying sun. The tunnels glowed with molten light, the air heavy with smoke, and the sharp scent of burning metal. Every sound echoed: the groan of collapsing stone, the hiss of steam from broken pipes, the distant rumble of explosions from the surface. Eli Thorne led the way, dragging Rogath behind him on the sled made of scorched armor plates. The heat was unbearable, and sweat ran down his face beneath his cracked helmet. His armor's cooling systems had failed long ago, but he kept going, one step after another, driven by a single thought. He had to finish this. He had to make sure his daughter, somewhere out there, would have a world left to live in. The tunnels opened into a vast chamber, a space so huge it felt like the inside of a planet's heart. Below them, a bottomless pit burned with liquid fire, and at its center hung the reactor, a massive sphere of glowing energy wrapped in cables and alien machinery. It pulsed with light, each beat shaking the ground as if the world itself were breathing. Rogath stared at it with awe and pain in his many eyes. "That is the core," he said weakly. "The power of Vraxos itself. If we destroy it, the Veil signal will collapse. They will lose control, and the swarm will fall. Eli looked out at the firestorm below. How do we get to it? Rogath pointed to a narrow bridge of metal that crossed the pit. It was half-melted, sparking in places, and didn't look strong enough to hold even one man, let alone both of them. That's the only way, the alien said quietly. But once we plant the charges, there will be no time to escape. Eli gave a dry laugh. Yeah, he said. I figured as much. He took a deep breath, adjusted his grip on the detonator pack, and started forward. The bridge groaned under their weight. Flames flickered below, and pieces of molten rock fell like rain. Behind them, the tunnels filled with the mechanical shriek of the Veil. The swarm had found them. Thousands of red lights appeared in the darkness, moving like a tide of silver insects. The air was filled with the sound of metal claws scraping against the walls. Rogath looked back, panic in his eyes. They are coming. Eli didn't stop. Then we move faster. He reached the midpoint of the bridge when the first Veil drones burst from the tunnel. Their bodies glowed red, their blades spinning, their voices a chorus of distorted screams. Eli turned, raised his rifle, and fired. The shots ripped through the air, each blast lighting up the chamber in bright blue flashes. The drones exploded, but more came, crawling along the ceiling and walls like spiders. Eli's weapon overheated, and he threw it aside, drawing his knife instead. He fought with every ounce of strength he had left, slicing, punching, kicking, using every bit of human stubbornness that had kept his kind alive for centuries. Sparks rained around him as machines fell into the pit, their bodies turning to slag in the molten heat. Rogath watched, both terrified and amazed, as the human fought like a creature born from fire itself. "You cannot fight them all," the alien shouted. Eli gritted his teeth. "I don't need to. Just enough to finish this." He reached the end of the bridge, slammed the detonator pack onto the reactor's surface, and began wiring it to the energy conduits. His fingers shook from exhaustion, but he worked quickly, guided by sheer willpower. Rogath dragged himself beside him, helping where he could, muttering prayers to his gods. The chamber trembled as the Veil poured in from all sides. It was a storm of metal and light, the sound deafening. A giant Veil guardian emerged from the darkness, a massive machine of twisted steel and burning cores. Its voice was a roar of static. Organic life. Obsolete. Purge required. Eli looked up at it, eyes blazing with defiance. "Come and get me." The guardian lunged, its blade arm slicing through the bridge, sending pieces of metal flying. Eli was thrown off balance, barely catching a support beam as Rogath slid toward the edge. The alien grabbed a loose cable and held on, but his claws were slipping. "Go!" he shouted. "Finish it!" Eli's body screamed in pain, but he reached out, caught Rogath's arm, and pulled with everything he had. "Not leaving you!" he yelled. The bridge cracked again, sending showers of sparks into the pit. Above them, the Veil Guardian charged its main cannon, light gathering in its chest. The whole chamber glowed red as it prepared to fire. Eli looked at the reactor, then at Rogath, then back at the oncoming blast. He made his choice. "Rogath," he said calmly, pressing the detonator remote into the alien's claw. "If I don't make it, you finish this." The alien's eyes widened. "No, human, you cannot—" But it was too late. Eli shoved Rogath backward, out of the line of fire, and charged straight at the Guardian. The machine fired. The beam hit Eli full on, shattering his armor and throwing him across the reactor platform. The pain was unimaginable, but he didn't stop. He crawled forward, his body smoking, his vision fading, and reached the detonator wires. His voice was weak but steady. "You forgot one thing about humans," he whispered. "We don't know when to quit." He slammed his fist onto the trigger. The explosion that followed shook the world. The reactor ignited in a burst of blinding blue light, tearing through the Veil's network in a wave of destruction. The Guardian screamed as its metal body melted away. The shockwave raced upward through the tunnels, reaching the surface in seconds. The Veil ships above the city flickered, lost control, and fell from the sky in burning pieces. The mothership in orbit cracked open like glass, its core splitting apart in a final silent bloom of light. From space, Fraxos 9 looked like a sun being born. a brilliant, expanding sphere of fire that consumed everything, even the machines that had tried to devour it. When the Gorath fleet finally arrived hours later, they found only ruins and silence. The surface of the planet was scorched black, the cities gone. But deep in the ashes, they discovered the remains of the command bunker and, within it, something unexpected. On the wall, written in human blood mixed with alien dust, were words that none of them would ever forget. He fought for us. Rogoth survived, barely. The explosion had thrown him clear into a collapsed tunnel, where the fleet found him days later. He told them everything. About the human soldier who had saved him, about the battle in the core, about the sacrifice that had destroyed the Veil. The story spread quickly across the Gorath worlds, and for the first time the word human was not spoken with fear or hatred, but with respect. They built a memorial on the remains of Vraxos 9, a statue of a man standing beside a Gorath, both looking toward the stars. At the base were the words Rogoth had chosen himself. He fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for love. Years passed, and peace slowly returned to the scattered colonies. The humans who had once been wanderers were now allies of the Gorath. Together they rebuilt, learning from each other, forging something stronger than either race could have made alone. On a distant world, under a sky of twin suns, a young woman stood on a hill overlooking a new city. Her name was Mira Thorn, and she wore a pendant shaped like the insignia of her father's old armor. She had been rescued after the fall of Vraxos 9, carried to safety by a signal beacon that had somehow transmitted her father's final coordinates. Every year, on the day the stars flared in the same pattern as the explosion that ended the Veil, she came to that hill and looked up. This time she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Rogoth, now old and scarred, serving as ambassador to the new Human-Gorath alliance. His deep voice was softer now, heavy with memory. "Your father saved not just my world," he said, looking at the pendant in her hand, "but countless others. The Veil was spreading beyond the stars. If not for him, the galaxy itself might have fallen." Mira smiled sadly. "He was just a dad who didn't give up," she said quietly. Rogoth looked at her, his many eyes reflecting the twin suns. "Then the galaxy is fortunate that humans never give up," he said. The wind stirred the dust around them, carrying faint echoes of battle long past. Mira closed her eyes and whispered, "I miss you, Dad." Somewhere far away, in the endless quiet of space, the remains of Vraxos 9 still glowed faintly, a light that never faded, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, humanity's fire endures. And as long as that light burned among the stars, no one would ever again doubt the strength of a human heart.